first. Baby got quiet.
Probably because the music's
Because the
playing.
music's playing?
Yeah.
What's up, Jeff? What's up, Chris? What's up, Barack? What's up, Paul? What's up, Todd? What's up, Jason? Y'all all hopped in all at the same time. What's up, Shotgun Pappy? Or Shotgun API?
What's up?
Nothing. You got quiet while you were on.
Shotgun P API.
What?
Shotgun P API. You can hear me okay now, right?
Yeah, now you sound
Now
fine.
that nothing's playing. Okay, good.
What's up, Jeff? What's up,
Screwed me.
Gustav?
Okay. Looks like all the things are up and running. I'm gonna open my recording dingus and start recording my dingusness. Oh, not open. New audio file. What is this? 271, huh?
Is it?
Whew. Yep. Sure is.
A lot of episodes.
Sure is. All right. I'm going to start recording. If everybody else wants to start rolling,
Sure thing.
let me know when you're
I
going
am
and we'll do
rolling.
a sync.
Test, 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 test. Yep.
Rolling here.
All right.
Cool.
We're going to do a sync clap. It'll be 1, 2, 3 clap, okay? You ready?
Ready.
1, 2, 3.
Cool.
All right. We are good to go. All right. Make sure that I have turned off my phone. There we go.
Oh, we're 2 minutes late, Dave.
What?
So we're 2 minutes late.
2 minutes late. Oh, we went live on time. See, that's all that matters.
All right.
All right, here we go. What's up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and I am very excited about our guest today. Joining us, the VFX AI master, Mr. Nathan Shipley.
What's up, Matt?
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us, info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show. Questions, comments, concerns, grievances, queries, artist suggestions. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, mograph.com. Noob or expert, doesn't matter. Send them in.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one here. This is a question I wanted to ask you. I've been getting questions a lot about 3090. So wanted to ask you if you knew any reliable sources like a website or phone app to buy an RTX 3090 in the UK. I know we've been talking about using hot stock here in the US.
Yeah, I don't know if hot stock works in the UK.
I don't think it probably does, but if anybody knows of one, putting the call out there. Also, is this a good moment to buy one? Now, this is the question that's been coming in. Got some Instagram questions about
2 months
that as
ago
well.
would have been a good time to buy them.
Well,
or at least in the US, because now the tariffs are hitting.
The
It's
thing
going to
is,
be more expensive.
it's a good moment to buy one when you can get one at a decent price. If you want one so bad that you're willing to spend the extra $1,000 on it or whatever, feel free. But we have found them at the Founders Editions, the regular prices, by just waiting. And so that's my advice. If you don't have to have one today, just hold out. Save yourself $1,000. You're 2/3 to a second 3090 if you do that. If
Right.
You're saving that $1,000, right?
I've heard about people watching Newegg's Twitter also, and sometimes they'll announce when they're going to release some, and you can hop on them that way.
Yeah.
Cool.
hard to
Cool. That's
find.
cool.
They haven't released them lately because we've been watching and there's been
No, we've been watching.
Nothing.
We're ready to pick them up too. I mean,
Yeah.
we bought a 3060 Ti the other day, and we ended up flipping it for $400.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We were gonna
we
keep
were
it,
planning on using it. We weren't buying it just so that we could flip it, you know. But
We changed our minds. We're going to go all
We changed our mind.
3090s.
We were going to go all 3090s.
Right.
And then I was like, all right, let's go ahead and sell this. And I sold it in 25 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
You can tell that's the thing. Everybody's buying them to flip them. So.
Or
not
to
everybody,
mine
but-
cryptocurrency right now.
Yeah.
Mining
Because
too.
that's ridiculously high. Thanks, Elon Musk.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, yeah, we'll be looking for that UK version, but just whenever you need one that bad for that price is when you buy one. You know, I would wait. I think you get it the regular price on the reg pretty soon. You know, once they finally.
If you're not in
keep
our
up,
Slack
catch
channel
up.
as well,
Yeah.
come join the Slack channel. Send us a request. info@mograph.com, and we'll get you hooked up.
Yeah.
I read them basically the second they come in and send. I'm in charge of that. And then join our hardware channel because we all talk 3090s and when they're out and stuff like that.
I can't even try to add people to our Slack channel when they request because
because
you've already
I'm so
gotten to
fast
them.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally, I check my email on my phone like every 5 minutes. It's just habit, pulling out my phone and checking my email and my text messages and stuff. And then because I've got so many text message chains now with groups of people that I have
know.
notifications turned off,
Me too.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm constantly checking it to make sure, I haven't missed out on any conversation,
Group
and then
texts
I
are
get
the
all
new
the
Facebook.
notifications from Slack, every notification from all 1,000 members of our Slack channel,
Oh my God.
so
Yeah.
it's just easy.
Week wrap up real quick. I did want to mention to join us Thursday night, 8 p.m.
Yes.
Central Time, 6 p.m. if you are in Cali, where most of these people are. But join us on Thursday night for the Creating the Unreal Winbush Student Showcase. We're going to be talking to artists who have taken the course, and they're going to be showing off what they've been working on. Last week we showed something from John Jag's knee. Now, here's the deal. Released as of today, and there's Winbush in the chat. What up, what up? Released today is his new chapter in the course.
Yeah.
Which Jama was gracious enough to let us use this night pack to offer as a free download that you get with this chapter, and discount codes on all products. If you are already a student, you go to that chapter and you can go to this page to get your discount code. It basically goes to us and we approve it because you know how discount codes are. You gotta lock those in. You gotta keep those on lock. So you do get that discount code on all the rest of the products on his Gumroad. But the new chapter shows how to do stuff with these little knights. There's some really cool looking knights. So
it's high quality stuff too.
Yeah. So I put together a little promo piece for this new chapter.
Has Winbush seen this yet?
Yeah. I sent it to him last night. It was on Instagram stories. It's going to be posted on our other social later today, but you'll see it here. Let me give it a play real quick.
As long predicted by prophecy, the Chosen One speaks.
What up, what up?
I spend way too much time working on that this weekend. It was supposed to be, you start out, you're like, oh, I'll just do this little thing for fun. And then like 24 hours later, you're like, man, this is supposed to be like a real quick thing. But I had fun doing it. It was fun. Those packs are beautiful, first of all.
Yeah.
But make sure you check us out on Thursday and come hang out, especially if you're new, if you want to hear a little bit more about what people are actually doing with Unreal in motion graphics. If you haven't gotten into it yet, check us out. And then Many Hues of Mograph Part 3 will be the following Thursday. So don't forget about that. Make sure you check out the other stuff on our site, like the Houdini, Stop Being Afraid of Houdini, which we're going to be doing some upgrades to that as well pretty soon. So keep an eye on that. And then we got a new article called Using 3D to Set Renaissance Art in Motion. So if you have not seen this piece, man, it is so good. It looks like a Renaissance painting. And this is a music video that was shot like by taking like Unreal captures, bringing them into 3D, doing cloth sims, all that. And what I love are the cloth sims in this video. I'm going to mute it and bring it up on the screen here so you can actually see what I'm talking about if you're watching live. And just the extent they went to really lock in these dance moves, and it's so clean, and the cloth is just so good in this. The cloth sims. You know, I watched this at first, and I'm like, wait, is this real? Because there's kind of a style to it that's applied to it. Kind of looks like film, and I'm like, are these real people with this look on them, or is this CG with this look? Because it's really hard to tell. But man, like this piece, you got to go check it out. So we got a whole article on Mograph.com about that. Check that out. And yeah.
You're steppy on our
articles.
side, by the way, on the audio.
Man.
Yeah, I hear that too.
This out, so
yeah,
I'll fix it for you.
Garbly.
Any better now?
Yeah, the people don't hear him.
Yeah,
it's just us.
Yeah, it's
because
just
of Skype.
You can hear me now, right? I'm better now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right, so good segue. See, you got me out of that, right?
Yep.
And real quick, I did want to go to Ravcock. What's your flavor?
What's your flavor?
And I haven't heard too much going on in the render scene lately, but maybe you have something.
Octane 2020.2 is out officially. Stable version is out. Yeah.
Have you tried it yet?
Yeah.
I haven't.
I haven't, but it's got the whatchamacallit workflow. Forgot what it's called. I don't know, all the render passes and stuff. No, not Aces. No? It's the other thing. The other A word, I believe.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Now you can make me look it up.
All right, well, you look that up, and I'm going to talk about Render is doing an online Cryptoart class.
Yeah.
So there's a whole Twitter thread that goes through the whole thing. I think it stems from an AMA with somebody from last October. And
AOV. The AOV passes.
The AOV passes.
And OpenColor.io, and they've also got the Light Manager, which Ahmet's been working on.
Is that in the Cinema 4D?
It's in there, but it's not fully up from what I understand.
I want to try that.
So that's still a work in progress, but the AOV passes and the OpenColor.io are like good to go.
And
they're solid now.
I've been doing so much with doing like light exclusions lately, and I would love that manager right now because it gets so complicated. Remember, okay, you got to go to the Octane tag, and then you got to give. You got to remember
which one is turned off and on and stuff. Yeah, it's awful.
And then if too many things are off, certain things turn black because they don't have any lights. I'm looking forward to that. So let's talk to Nathan now about stuff and things that he's done.
Yeah.
First of all, let's start from the very beginning because we have not met you in person before. It's COVID times. We're meeting our new friends on the internet now. And
the first time I think I had seen your stuff around, but what I instantly started following you when you started doing the Beeple AI stuff.
Oh, cool.
I was in Denver with Mike. And he was like, dude, you got to check this thing out. And he shows me. I was like, oh man, that's an instant follow right there.
That's awesome.
And I've been like, as cool as that was, I think the stuff that you're doing now is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Cool. So, thank you.
But how did you get to this point?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I come from a Mograph background. I've been, doing After Effects since like 2003, I think. And I do 3D and Maya, but I've always been, a little bit more on the technical side. I will be writing scripts and stuff and expressions to do things. And my last title before my current job was technical director with a group of about 10 animators that I worked with. And so I did animation and I did, 3D and rendering, but it would always be projects that kind of lean a little bit more on the nerd side, I guess. And so I'm at an advertising agency which has a relationship with the Salvador Dali Museum. And I had been, my kind of gateway into all of this was playing around with some early deepfake code, actually, where I had, scraped some of that code from GitHub, and we were playing around with it for a project that ended up being where we recreated Salvador Dali to be at the Dali Museum. So you can go to the museum, he talks to you about his art. And it was this kind of crazy learning curve to get to the point where you're basically running these Python scripts in the terminal, and it's a very different workflow from what a lot of people are used to. But it kind of made me aware of all that stuff. And then I saw the things that people started doing with GANs. So generative. So that is a kind of a AI architecture, GAN. So a generative adversarial network. And yeah, it gets pretty nerdy in a hurry. But this particular kind of network, one of the things that it can do is sort of replicate things that it has seen, right? And so I saw some results people, kind of academics, were posting with this, and it was like, oh my God, how did they do that? What is this thing? And so I started trying to read and to understand, and I ended up I got the boss to send me to a conference, actually, to a thing at MIT called Ganocracy. And I was, learning more about all this stuff, and I finally had enough understanding where I could try it. And so what you do is sort of build a data set of things that you want the AI to learn from, right? And so the ones that they had published, initially NVIDIA released this code for this particular network that's called StyleGAN. They did it with faces. So if you've ever been to the website... Is
that the one where they had, they took a whole bunch of faces and then they just made random faces from it? And they said, none of these people are actually real?
Exactly. Yeah. This person does not exist.com is all NVIDIA's StyleGAN people.
That's cool.
From a data set of Flickr, basically. They scraped Flickr for 70,000 images. But you don't have to show it people. You could show it, cats or cars or dogs. And so the kind of things that they did.
People artwork.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's when I was like, well, what if we scrape Beeple's Instagram and throw that in there? And so I did. And then it started to just make this beautiful stuff and so I kept tagging him in my posts. And it must have been when you guys were talking to him, because I remember flipping out when he messaged me. And I was like, oh my God, people just saw this thing. And he's like, what is this? What are you doing? And so, that was kind of the beginning of doing this generative work, which has led me, further down this path into doing these face recreations that I'm doing right now.
So how does it work? How? That's the thing. What is the process in a nutshell of getting to this? But how are you feeding this?
Yeah.
And are there parameters? What is the?
And you're saying you're feeding people's Instagram. Are you just putting a link in there and saying, all right, do this, and it takes 3 seconds, or does it take time in order to
curation?
In order to analyze every frame.
Yeah, so these are great questions, and it's not a link, but I'll actually create a data set of images. So I scraped his Instagram and saved everything as an image, and then essentially what you end up with sort of a folder of files. And what it will do is it kind of looks at all of these and learns what makes them similar and different and all the things that make them what they are. And it takes what it's learned and puts it into a thing called a model of this neural network, which is a file that's 380 megs. And inside this 380 megabyte file are all of the different settings for all of the neurons in the network that can make the art like what you're playing right now.
Wow.
So there are a bunch of parameters, there are a bunch of controls, there's kind of a whole new language of stuff to learn to get to where you can kind of play with this more effectively, I suppose. It's kind of amazing to take something like this and then you're just generating more stuff that kind of feels like something that Beeple could have made. Or people are doing it with all sorts of different data sets. It's kind of fascinating to see what things people will collect and put together. The quality of the images that you put in matters. If they're all similar enough, then you'll start to make new things. Like the faces, that when they did that, they're all aligned so the eyes and the mouths are all centered up at the exact same part. So it starts to generalize what a human face looks like in these different levels of detail. That go through the neural network.
Man, I can put this on all day. It's hours of this. This is
Just throw it on in the background.
Stare at
it. And that thing you're playing,
some Sigur Rós or something.
Make it real moody. The thing that you're playing is a 2-hour loop, but it's actually, it could be infinite, right? That's what's sort of kind of hard to even understand, I think, of like, we could just let that keep going. And I actually built a live player where it'll take one of these, it's like potentially for a client project, so I haven't released it yet, but where it would just take one of these models that you build and then just in real time generate output that would go on forever and never repeat of whatever it's learned from.
That's a Cryptoart idea right there. I don't know how you would do it, but just never ends. And the cool part is, like, if you could find some sort of player that would play it, like kind of like the one that Mike is doing for his pieces, which are shipping, by the way.
Yeah,
I saw mine in the picture.
Exciting.
I circled it.
Yeah.
Like literally, mine was in the photo. But if you could have a player like that, and it's continuously feeding the, I guess, AI footprint of a certain Instagram account or artist or something, that would be really fun. $1 million idea right there. Take
there
it.
you go.
Everybody take it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of, I think a lot of people want to know, cool, how do I do that?
Right.
How do I play with this?
Right.
Yes.
And, on one level, some of the stuff that I'm doing is very much like I've got a text editor messing with Python code and like TensorFlow networks and stuff that's just like kind of takes a while to get to the point where that's easy enough to do. But if you guys have seen, I'm going to blank on the name, Runway ML. So the Corridor guys were just talking about it on one of their videos where they've got like a kind of like an auto green screen thing. It'll cut somebody out or do roto work based on just video. You can kind of like, it's like a really souped up roto brush basically.
Okay.
That's based on a machine learning thing. So Runway ML is some software that you can run either on the cloud or on your desktop, and it lets you play with all of these algorithms just without having to do all of the complicated Python stuff. So yeah, actually the thing you're showing right now, that was a StyleGAN network that's making bugs. And they're showing, there was another one with the green screen thing. So it's sort of crazy that this actually makes it easy-ish to play with these things. You don't have to go through all the complicated installing the right dependencies for the CUDA library and the version of TensorFlow that gets like to the part where people get frustrated. But yeah, check out Runway ML if you want to play with these sorts of things. And it's basically, this software is kind of a general architecture where people can add any kind of different machine learning tool to it. So it's not just StyleGAN, it's not just this green screen thing. It's a kind of a place where there can be all sorts of different algorithms.
I'm putting this in the show notes as well, so people.
Yeah,
Cool.
I literally just sent some stuff off to Roto, and now I'm looking at this and I'm like,
can we
I
try
have to
it?
do that? Can I
Can we
save some
try
money?
You took her jabs.
Check out the Corridor video. They just posted one, and at the end, one of the guys is kind of going on about how crazy AI and machine learning is going to be for all of the work that we do all the time. And I was chatting to my coworkers, and I was like, he sounds like me going on about this. This is crazy. Like, you guys don't understand. So, yeah.
You're that meme of the guy from Always Sunny, like with all the strings attached
cigarette.
to cigarette. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll also
me.
put the thispersondoesnotexist.com into the show notes as well. So is this all it is? Is it just it's a different person every time?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this thing is, these people are totally generated by StyleGAN, trained on the Flickr Faces HQ data set is what it's called. And so this is kind of like the most basic level at which you could use this stuff to just like throw some random numbers into it and it's going to make a face. Throw some other random numbers and it makes a different face. And sometimes they're kind of messed up, like that one you got up there right now. Some weird.
But like, can you use this for something? Like, if you need a picture of someone for something, what's
I mean,
the legal...
if they're just randomly creating it, you just right-click Save As, and no one will ever know because you're never going to hit that one ever again?
There was an article about, I think it was like an actual spy that used one of these images as like a profile picture on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen also a stock image company that generates people. And so you just have, an infinite amount of people. And like that's one level of it, right? But then beyond that, if you want to go into, whoa, we got this scary looking
know.
Yeah,
guy,
that
right?
was creeped out.
You get some really scary accidents in there.
Yeah. But what gets really interesting is then when you start to mix the different layers of it together to change the attributes of the face. So we could take that same face and then make that person be smiling, or, change their skin color or change the lighting, and it all just looks realistic. So this is like, some of these tools are starting to come into Photoshop and that kind of new beta machine learning section they've got of the effects. I think we're going to start to see more and more of it in accessible tools.
It's unbelievable. I mean, some of these are just, they're perfect. Like, you don't see any weirdness in them.
Yeah.
Some of them you do, but...
So let me ask you this, like, to say you wanted to create another person GAN, like a Beeple GAN, you wanted to do another artist, right? How long, like, if you've already built the groundwork for it, how long would it take you to reproduce something like that?
Yeah. So to reproduce one with a different artist, essentially, there's kind of the training time is the main thing that you have to figure into all of this. So training the faces one from scratch, for example, I think took them like weeks of time on these crazy GPU rigs that have 8 V100s and stuff. And the Beeple one, I think that was about a week worth of training.
Really?
Yeah.
And is that constantly running?
Yeah, it's constantly running.
Wow.
But I understand more about how it works now. And a lot of times, instead of starting from scratch, what you can do is you take an existing network and then you do what's called transfer learning. So we start from, the Faces network or the one that makes art, and say, now we're just going to show it Beeple. And it can actually very quickly learn to make something new without having to... It's starting completely from scratch when it doesn't even know how to make an image at all is what takes a long time for it to kind of build up. So, I'm able to... I do most of this work on a Google Cloud platform thing, like a virtual machine online now that has 4 GPUs. And it'll be, usually a few hours of training before you start to get something where you're like, oh, okay, cool. That kind of looks like the thing. And then you let it go a little further and it'll get more refined. And you can, tweak the settings.
But you have that starting point for certain pieces of it. So you're forking out every time you start, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of part of the art of it and the process too, is kind of creating things as you go and saving this and then knowing, okay, cool, I've built one with wiki art and another one with Beeple, and so I could start from Beeple, show it something else. But there's also tools that let you blend the networks together, so we could like take a mix of Beeple and something else, and then you get this sort of weird thing in the middle that sort of looks like one, sort of looks like the other.
Is that how they got the very first time we had ever heard of this, or I had ever heard of this, was like the Google deep learning stuff with it was like weird eyeballs and like animals and super weird trippy colors and stuff like that.
Oh, are you thinking of Deep Dream?
Deep Dream.
Deep Dream, yes.
Yeah, so this is like a different kind of neural network, but in the sense that it's also AI machine learning technology. Yes, that was some of the first stuff that people got excited about with this. And that one, aesthetically, I never loved that one. I was like, I'm not that into fractals. But, the technology is really fascinating, that it's kind of generating one image, and then it's saying, okay, what does that look like based on what I know? And then it takes the answer to that question and shows it again and again and again, and you get this recursive thing where it sort of interprets itself and loops and does this crazy fractal stuff. So yeah, that was kind of early days of this Deep Dream.
Setting up the Google stuff, though, for like calculating all of that, how difficult is that to spin up a server and get it ready to do that? Is there a lot of installation? Can you do clones of servers? Like, what's the process?
The process is like arduous enough that it's not very straightforward.
Yeah.
You definitely, to use it at that level, you need to be really comfortable with Linux and installing packages. And
not me. No.
Yeah. Yeah. But that said, this is kind of where Runway ML comes in, because I think you can actually do your own training on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing you'll see people posting links to as you start to kind of follow these are a service that Google has called Collaboratory. So you'll see like Google Colab link to this thing, for example. And essentially it's like, it lets you use a server with a GPU and run Python code on it. And so people will say like, okay, here's a way that you can play with our network on Colab. And so you kind of like, it looks kind of technical, but it's not actually that complicated, where you just kind of press play on these cells and it runs that code. And so I don't know. I think I've actually seen that there are some StyleGAN training collabs out there. There's a guy named Derek Schultz who does these classes about using machine learning for, image making and creativity. And he releases a bunch of them on YouTube. I think his channel is called BustBright. So if you're interested in checking some of this stuff out and want to kind of dive into it, I would highly recommend checking that out. That'd be a good one for the notes, I'd say, because it's actually like somebody it's technical, but he explains it in a way that you can follow in kind of a class format.
Right.
And he talks a lot about doing it on Colab, which can be free actually to start with.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the artwork ones that you've been doing lately, because these ones, like, I showed my wife the other night and I was like, I'm so excited to have this guy on because I want to talk about this. This is, to me, this is so cool, because when you look at some of this old, Renaissance or whatever artwork, you're like, that doesn't look like a person.
Right.
It's like this artist must not have been technical enough in order to really capture this person's details.
Right.
But then you put it in the AI and it creates an actual person, and you're like, oh, okay, that looks like an actual person.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is all built around StyleGAN also. And in particular, this data set of Flickr Faces HQ. So, if you're in the chat right now, you see that we've got the painting of Mona Lisa up, but then we switch it and it looks just like a photo of her, kind of squinty-eyed and a little weird, but it's like, it looks like the same person and then just a photo of that person. So what this is doing is kind of one of the more like advanced things we can do with this network, right? Like we could do the whole, like starting off, throw some random numbers in, you get a random face. But one of the things that's interesting to do is to start with an existing image and try to find that person inside a particular model. So you could take a photo, we could take a photo of Dave and be like, all right, find me the closest person that looks like Dave inside the Flickr Faces HQ StyleGAN model. And it does that by kind of randomly looking at the different features of things that make your nose look like what it looks like, or your hair, or whatever. And it'll tune all of these values to something that looks kind of like you. And then you'll just get the photo out. But instead of, if instead of showing it a photo of you, we show a painting of you, and then ask it to create a photo from that painting, it's still going to find the structure that it sees in the face from the painting or the drawing. But because it's only ever seen photos, that's what it knows how to make. It makes a photo. And so this process is called like encoding an image into the model. So we encode the painting of Mona Lisa, and then it creates a photo that looks like Mona Lisa because it learned from photos, so it makes photos.
Yeah.
And this one is like, I don't think actually easy to play with online. This is has a little bit of my own like code that I've played with on top of some other code that people have released. And kind of what I've been doing is building kind of a library of different face features.
That one looks like Benjamin Franklin. It's like if you were to show someone I don't know. It's crazy. That's so crazy to me.
It's crazy. If you notice on that Ben Franklin one, it actually added an earring to his ear.
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny.
And I think
there's a little dot right there on the bill.
Yeah.
That's...
I think it might be related to the fact that he has long hair. And so when the AI learned what people look like, most of the long hair would be on females with earrings. And so it might associate that with, this maybe is a female face, so add an earring.
You look at George Washington, and here it's like, okay, it looks weird, but then like as far as the picture of him, but then the actual image of what he looks like, in the AI, it's like, okay, I could see that being a real person.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get
Andrew
the
Jackson looks a little bit effeminate.
But if you don't get the right result, like let's say that you programmed Ben Franklin here and then it just doesn't look like Ben Franklin, how hard is it to go back and fix, retrain? Is it a matter of random seed? Do you have a random seed at that point? Or is it like, no, this is the set and you're going to have to backtrack and change some things to get a different output?
That's a really good question. And the answer is that there is a random seed and it does affect what the output looks like because, all of this is built on this particular combination of variables from like what it learned from, the way I set it, and what random place it starts from when it's looking. And so one of the things that I've been doing here is, like I started to say, build that library up of different face attributes, for example. These ones have long hair, these ones have darker skin or lighter skin or different colored eyes or different lighting. And so I could find, I could take the attributes of like an older looking white guy if I want to try to create my Ben Franklin thing now. I actually didn't know how to do that when I was doing the Ben Franklin ones because this has been this like ongoing experiment basically that I'm kind of sharing as I go. So yeah, if you get something that you don't like, you can try changing the random setting, or also you can change the input a little bit too. I've noticed that, having different, like changing the colors a little bit on the image that I feed it in can affect the output.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's, or cropping in slightly closer or further back can like create different results. It's really bad at doing clothes and hair, for example. Because the model, this particular one makes faces, so when it tries to make a hat, it just puts hair instead of a hat, which looks, it looks pretty funny. I'll have to send you guys one of Henry VIII with this weird hair hat thing that it made on him. So
you almost need like a separate Instagram account for all the fails.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty solid. Because there are plenty of them. That's a good idea.
AI monsters.
Have you tried like inputting a picture of yourself and seeing how accurate it has gotten?
That was gonna be a question too. Like like what, like a blind study to see what your result is on a random person you've never
because
met.
just looking at paintings, maybe they look just like this, maybe they don't, maybe the artist, didn't know what they were doing, or like even doing a stylized picture of yourself using Photoshop and then inputting that and seeing how accurate it comes out.
That's a good idea. Or with people that we have photos of them.
Right.
I think a lot of it really comes down to how accurate that painting is to begin with. Because, I've tried some of like illustrations of like concept art for The Incredibles, where they don't look like actual human proportions, but then it creates these things that still have the same shape. So, Elastigirl looks like this really round face that isn't physically plausible, but that's what it makes. So it's really dependent on the input, right? And I think I'm always try to be careful to say that I'm not saying this is what Mona Lisa looked like, right? This is what Mona Lisa looked like based on this painting that somebody did, which probably made her look a little, different than what she really was.
Yeah.
You did another one where it was I think it was similar to the you're actually like live drawing and it's updating as it goes, right? Yeah.
So that one, that's I think one of the cooler examples of this. And I got permission from a couple of character illustrators to use their time lapses that they would record of themselves drawing stuff as the input. And so you see the way that the faces evolve when they like change the shape of the lips, like the lips change in the output of this photo that we're seeing as it goes. And so
is it seeing it live?
No,
or did you so you had to actually run that through first?
Yeah, that's an image sequence that I ran through. That's the app that like I probably should have been making all this time as like a live version of that, because so many character artists have reached out and illustrators are like, how do I play with this? I want to play with this thing. And I'm like, oh God, it's a whole bunch of stuff and it's really complicated to explain.
I mean,
but
if you think about it, like even creating that app, like there's so many uses for that. For example, like doing sketches of here's good. Okay, I got it for you. Right?
There we go.
Okay, so take like crime artists sketches of what they've said and see how close it gets to like the actual murderer or whatever, you know.
I actually think that's a really good idea. Imagine this tool that I think they have things, you know, for, you know, John Doe sketch artists or whatever, you know, that they have some more modern tools to do that stuff, but imagine hooking that up to this where you know, we could have a little dial to control like the age or the the shape of the mouth, all that kind of stuff. Or you could just draw it and directly see the output.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
That would be sweet.
Jeff asks, is it possible to have it create 3D meshes, or is it just creating 2D? That's a good question.
That's a great question. This particular network is just working with RGB images, but other people are using other ones to create actual 3D meshes. And I haven't dived into that too much, but I've read some papers. A lot of the stuff that you see will end up just being like these kind of very academic level papers, like probabilistic modeling of non-manifold geometry, and you're like, cool. And what that means is like, we made a 3D chair. Look at it. But what's interesting about it is like, you know, moving beyond the chair models. There's, you know, artists. There's a sculptor named Ben Snell who uses a GAN to create 3D geometry, and then he actually physically makes the stuff in the real world that the 3D generative model produced. So, that's. I mean, I actually just saw one. I should look this morning about a GAN that would be used to do character animation, where you define like a few poses and some bones, and then it can automatically do a walk cycle. It looked kind of like messy compared to like, I don't think anybody here would want to use it for production, but the fact that it's doing that and it's kind of automatic shows that there's a lot of things like that are going to start to be things we can use on a day-to-day basis.
But you have so many different ways you do this. Like you've got the ones that are like Disney characters that are animated from people's mouth and facial movements. This is interesting. First of all, on the left you've got a real person, on the right you've got the result. The person on the left is she tracked? Is she stabilized? It looks like she's...
I think she is, yeah. So that's a woman named Bella Porch on TikTok, and so she posts a bunch of videos of her. You know, she's very expressive.
There's a thing called Face Zoom.
Yeah,
that it's like a plugin that they use on TikTok where it just stabilizes the face. Yeah,
I see. But she is incredibly expressive, incredibly expressive to begin with. So I imagine this is a really good sample.
Totally. And so this one that we're looking at is actually like, this is two entirely different things than what we've been talking about. There's no style GAN in the animation here. This is a tool called First Order Motion, which is another kind of neural network architecture that can take motion from one face and apply it to another, basically. So I've used a set of style GAN tools to take a picture of Uma Thurman and then kind of create a cartoon version of her on the right. So that started with a real photo of Uma. I created another network that like was trained on Pixar characters, basically with bigger eyes. And so then we create cartoon Uma. That's the original photo.
Wow.
And then I took that and let that be sort of the target for the motion from Bella.
It's almost meta at that point.
Dude,
like,
that's and like, have you tried anything more than just like, to me, if I got this working, you know, I'd be like, all right, I'm making a short film. You know, I gotta make a short film. You know, there's no reason not to.
And it's so like, I've had people reach out actually specifically about this, because to ask that question, like, hey, we're working on a documentary and, you know, we'd like to have characters in it doing animation. Can we use this technology to do that? And I think the answer is like, within some kind of specific limitations, yes. You know, you need to be sort of like, the resolution's not very good on what it makes, and you kind of want to stay front on, and it's only going to just be the square around the head. But if you needed President Obama's toonified face to be talking about something, all you got to shoot is like that one of on the left.
Frida Kahlo.
Yeah, Frida, that's me actually. Like driving her
Is it?
animation. Yeah, I
Wow.
should have posted that. I'm just kind of like moving my face around a little bit, and then it makes her move like that. So I think part of this is what I love to do is find new models and code that people release and just play with them from the perspective of an animator and a motion graphics person. This is Chad, who I work with, Toonified, and yeah, there's because a lot of the people that make the work are very academic, right? And so as you start to understand enough to where you can download some Python code from GitHub and run it locally, then you can start to play with these things where you can kind of do things that were impossible to do or really expensive to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, like taking 2D people and turning them into 3D, like 2D and 3D art kind of.
Yeah, and those are the Incredibles ones that I was talking about.
Yeah.
This is that same thing that's...
This is great. Oh, man, the dad.
He looks... Make him pink and he looks like Patrick.
Oh, that's funny.
Patrick Star. Oh, that's funny.
So this is the same general technique that I've been doing with the paintings, except taking those illustrations, character concept art illustrations as the input.
And this would be fun for a short. If you could do this, like, it's this real style, but it's all the proportions of Pixar. If you could do an entire short like that, but
have you tried taking like video of a scene and like so? For example, how long did like the Obama animation take? For it to chew through and come out with a result?
It's actually really fast. It's basically real time.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So have you tried
After the
taking
training.
like a scene from a movie or something where it's just kind of like, monologue, they're up close and stuff like that and seeing what you've got?
I actually haven't tried that. I should.
God, man.
I think I'd be interested to see
You
what
just
the
need
like...
me to come over and throw a bunch of ideas at you. We'll just chat on Skype all day and be like, all right, try this.
I'm an idea guy.
Let's get the crazy
people
corkboard
person.
going.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing is that there's an endless amount of stuff to try where you're like, I have to do actual work here too. What do I do?
So cool. Like this stuff to me is absolutely fascinating. Like just initially with the deepfake stuff,
It's just going to get better too.
Yeah, and jumping back to your original thing, I'd like to talk to you about the deepfake stuff because you did that for the Dali Museum, and I don't know if have you seen the stuff that the South Park guys have done?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So good.
Like you can't tell the difference.
No, I refer to if anybody asks me about deepfake these days, I send them a link to the first episode of Sassy Justice, and I say this is the state of the art right now. Yeah. Where they're using, they got all of the guys that were creating these on YouTube, derp fakes and like a bunch of names like that, and hired them to build. I think they were going to do a feature, and then it got messed up due to COVID, and so they said, we've got this team assembled that can do these amazing deepfakes. What do we do? And so now they're doing Sassy Justice with it. But yeah, it's really impressive because what they're doing is, it all moves so quick. So it's 2 years later technology from where I was when I was doing DALL-E. So the resolution is higher. Everything looks better. I mean, it's really amazing.
And so you're inputting like footage that you've shot of someone dressed up like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're training it based off of that? And what is it doing? Is it like 3D tracking the face and the shadows and everything? And then, but you don't come out with like a 3D mesh or anything like that, right? It's all just flat 2D images, right?
It is.
And what happens if you go through and it messes up one frame? Do you have to start completely over?
Let's see. You probably would need a better data set or different settings if it wasn't doing a particular frame well. But usually it's not just one frame that'll glitch out. It'll be like the whole thing, the head turns too far and then everything looks kind of weird and you're like, we can't use that. What was the first thing you were asking about with...
I don't remember.
How does it work? Does it make a mesh?
This.
Yeah. So that's... I think I also sort of have this way of thinking about it from where we look at it and we're like, okay, cool. If we had to do this in After Effects or in C4D, what would we do? Or Houdini? Like, what's the workflow here? And you think about like, right, we need a deforming mesh of the face. We're going to, flatten it out to UVs, and we can paint and then rewrap on some other face. And like, that's stuff you could do, and people do that. But the way that the deepfake technology works is that it sort of just works with flat images, and it creates an understanding also of all the ways that your face might move, and all the ways that Dave's face might move. And what it looks like in different poses, and then it can kind of like translate between the two, where it'll find the closest if Dave like opens his mouth like this, and then it'll be like, all right, the closest one of Matt doing that is this, and so now we can like drive your face with Dave's animation, basically.
Right.
And so it's sort of a higher fidelity version of what's happening on the first order motion thing, right? So we were looking at Uma Thurman being driven by like somebody on TikTok, and the deepfake stuff. It'll mess up when like we see teeth, for example. That's one of the places where it doesn't do very well. Yeah. And first order motion is even a little rougher on that. But the crazy thing about that is that you just need one photo and you can animate it. Whereas with deepfake, we want to have a few minutes of footage at least to let it, and it's sort of like ideally it's with a bunch of different poses and lighting and to capture all the different ways the face could look.
So are you training the deep fakes based off of the original footage, and then saying, okay, learn off of this, and then here's a bunch of images of this person? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or is it like, here is one image of this person, and I want you to stick that on this person's face? So, through all these images.
Yeah, it's sort of like, think of it for deepfake in the way that they're doing it on Sassy Justice. Imagine it's basically like 2 buckets of video that it's going to learn from, right? Okay. So we would learn from, for the Dali project, for example, we found an old interview of Salvador Dali from the 50s or something, where he was sitting there. It was in French. It was black and white. But the camera held still, and we got like 3 minutes of him talking, and that ended up being the best thing for it to learn from. And so then you get an actor who has more or less the same body, the same hair, roughly the same age as Dali, and then you're going to replace his face. And so it learns both of their faces, and then it takes the expressions of the actor and drives Dali's face with that.
Yeah. So. Have you run into issues before, like if you do like people with glasses? Like when I watched the Dali thing, I was like, okay, that mustache had to have been a pain in the ass. It probably clipped at times when it was turning.
So we worried about the mustache too, because we were like that's not going to work, and it was just like, oh yeah, the mustache is fine. It just worked. It just came out, and in fact, we had our actor initially. He had a mustache in an early test. And sometimes the mustache he had would stick out too far, and then I would have to do this paint work to remove the real mustache from the scene because it was the deepfake mustache wasn't lining up with it. Right. So we, in the end, told him to just take his mustache off, and it pulled the mustache from the archival footage of Dali.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is this at the one in London?
It's in St. Petersburg, Florida, actually.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I knew there was one in London, but I didn't know if it was permanent or not. I was going to ask you too about the line, more like the line drawing ones, about because and these look really cool. So I wanted to know about the training involved for this. Like what is this a mixture of? Like training with line drawings and landscapes, or some of these ones. But
these are some of my favorites, actually, that you've honed in on. And these are trained on a book from the Metropolitan Museum of Art that was released in the 60s, I think, of a bunch of etchings from Aesop's Fables books. So they are woodcuts and etchings of illustrations of like the tortoise and the hare, for example. And that are, some of them are 500 years old. And it's a relatively small data set, a book, it's got, I think, 70 images in it. And so instead of showing it Beeple's work, for example, in this case, I took StyleGAN and I'm showing it this work, these etchings and woodcuts. And as it learns, I actually started on that one from a data set of paintings, right? And it starts to transform those into looking like the etchings now. So if you stop it before it's learned all the way how to do etchings, you get this moment where it's a mix between the two, and some super fascinating stuff happens. There's actually, if you go to my site, nathanshipley.com, there's a GAN section at the top, and I think there's a link to this project that shows you what some of the input art actually looks like for that. You can check it out.
Yeah. Here we go. Oh yeah, you have a bunch more stuff on your site. This is good. Yeah, I'll have this in the show notes as well.
Cool.
So this is the page you're talking about, right? The AI.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's one of them I think called ASOPs at the top that will give you you can kind of see what the source stuff looks like. It's all just one big page, but those are some of the illustrations that it learned from.
Oh wow. Yeah, you can definitely see it.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of, some of the results to me look like, have you seen what they've been doing with people's actual dreams, where you can kind of get the brain waves? And I wish I could find let me see if
it's like they train people based off of like the synapses or whatever that's going on while they're showing them images.
Oh, okay.
And then they also scan them while they're dreaming.
Ah.
Yeah.
And they're almost able to, what you see on the right there is what the brain saw in that activity. Let me go back here, but look at the similarities.
Yeah.
You know,
it looks like a GAN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so interesting to see. Like, this is what's being reproduced. It's so weird. How similar.
That's an interesting concept, though, because like a lot of the way that the neural network training stuff works, I mean, people always say like, well, it's a black box in the middle, and like what that means is that, you know, I think StyleGAN has like, I don't know, like 60 million parameters or whatever. 60 million different neurons make up the middle of this network, and depending on how they're weighted, you know, whether they're like what their values are, it'll make something different. And so you get these sort of like emergent knowledge that happens inside this network that you can't really look at, or it's not easy to look at, where I wonder if it's doing something like that with the brain things as well. It can take these complex signals that we would never be able to look at and be like, okay, cool, so this is somebody's brain activity. I have no idea what this means, but it finds patterns that we wouldn't see, and it knows they're associated with like a picture of a dog because we showed the guy the dog and then his brain did this.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
I'm spitballing here, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So are you planning on taking any of these and doing crypto art with them?
Oh man, I have I am consider myself to be a crypto art skeptic for right now. I am actually like, I'm not sold on
until you make a drop and make $250,000 in 5 minutes,
right?
and you're like, I'm all about this crypto art stuff.
I know. I have like, you know, I love that Beeple made like $3.5 million. Like that guy has worked really hard for 14 years, and I'm like, awesome. Of anybody, you know, you're like, that makes me feel really good. But yeah, I don't know. My thoughts about it, I tend to feel like it's just really speculative right now. It's got this kind of like that same, you know, just the vibe of crypto in general, where people are like, well, I'm buying it because other people are buying it. And so I think like, I love the idea of supporting artists. But I think it just gets presented a little disingenuously when people are like, oh yeah, but this is this sort of level playing field thing for the artists and all this. I think it's kind of quickly recreating some of the same issues there are with the traditional fine arts market, for example, where there's like gatekeepers to like the platforms. And this is another thing in the chat at work where the guys are like, oh God, here he goes. He's going to start talking about crypto art again. But the other thing I like point people to recently, there's an artist named Memo Acton who he calls himself a computational artist, and he's been a big inspiration for me. And he's done a lot of early work with machine learning, and he created this website called cryptoart.wtf. And what goes along with that is this Medium article called like the unreasonable ecological cost of crypto art.
Right.
Where he's basically looking into like, it takes this sort of insane amount of energy to just do one mouse click transaction. It's like the same amount of energy that a household uses for a month is what it takes to do one of those things.
Right.
So I think like, yeah, I don't know.
I would like to say in retort to that, because we had this discussion either last week or the week before. Like, for example, I mine Bitcoin. You know, when my computers aren't running, I just let them mine. You know, and so I know that does take energy, but here in Texas, we get to choose. We have the right to choose whatever electricity company and we want. And so I go with 100% renewable energy every single time, so that I'm not, you know, intentionally hurting the environment by doing that.
Yeah, I think, and making choices like that is awesome, you know, and I think that's really great. But there's, you know, some videos in Memo's article about where they show the inside of crypto farms and stuff, the mining farms, where it's just like, oh my God, this like super loud fans with like gigantic stacks of cards just running, mining, making random numbers
the sound
all day.
Of thousands of NVIDIA fans.
Yeah. So I think, you know, it just sort of feels like, you know, there's certainly a lot of hype right now. And I think it's a good opportunity to sort of level set on this and try to like move forward intentionally, you know, like what can these markets do to have a more reasonable ecological footprint, you know? So this page you're on, this is cryptoart.wtf, and where on the side it's telling you the amount of energy used and that the transactions related to that particular piece of crypto art. So yeah, I could keep going on about all this, but I'm just a little bit raised eyebrow about it all. I've yet to.
My question about the energy consumption, and it's just because I don't quite understand, is wouldn't those tokens be generated anyway, even if the art wasn't attached to them?
I don't think I understand this well enough to totally know the answer.
I don't think so, because I think I think you're generating a specific type of token. It's not like, okay, this token is connected to a Bitcoin. You know, it's like you're mining it specifically for the art.
But where do these come from? Where
that is these... Yeah, that's another good question. It's like once Nifty, because when you buy something off of Nifty in the 5-minute window that you've got, you know, it takes a little bit to tell you what number you are and what your address is and what your token address is.
Yeah.
Is it because
they're mining these coins or whatever?
Actually, it's helpful to think about them not as coins, because they are on the Ethereum blockchain specifically. They're called smart contracts, right? Okay. So the non-fungible token, like the NFT, is built around a thing that Ethereum lets you do that Bitcoin actually doesn't, I think, called a smart contract, where you can kind of like put code into the block that's going to go on the the public
like a link
ledger,
to the art.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so by minting that piece and by buying it, you are creating a transaction on the blockchain. And I think it varies. Like Nifty, I think doesn't use as much gas, is what they call it in Ethereum, and that's like the energy that it takes to run the transactions, to record this thing on the blockchain. It's like crazy to talk about all this, but I think Super Rare, for example, tracks all of the bids and the sales and the transfers on the blockchain. So those ones generate kind of a lot more energy than the Nifty ones. So, I'd like to see the companies that are doing this to be just more transparent about it a little bit, because when Memo published this article, he was like, I'm not trying to take artists to task here. Like nobody knew this was happening, and he's like, I'm not mad at you, and he actually, and I agree, like loves the idea of there being a way to like just completely digitally buy and sell art. But when we're just basically talking about kind of like a mouse click and keeping track of like, okay, cool, Dave bought something from Matt and it was this much money. Why does it have to be the same as like flying across the Atlantic?
That's what I don't get. I don't even understand. Like we mine our own Bitcoin with our cards sometimes on the side, and it's like, well, even if we're doing this for a month, we're not using that much electricity. So I don't understand. Is this because of the fact that these have to be saved on a server and then it's like an exponential cost over time?
Yeah.
I think the way I understand it, and like I'm gonna just caveat all this that I'm like not an expert, but the way I understand it is that the blockchains are secure by this thing called proof of work, and so to hack it is really hard because it just takes a ton of compute. And so the way that we like put this transaction that says you bought that in the blockchain is by using a ton of compute power. And so that means that there are a bunch of servers all around the world that start generating random numbers until one of them hits the one that it needs to say like, all right, cool. That was what we needed to sort of like put this on the blockchain.
Because they're stored, because they're all stored on all these different places, decentralized in order to be secure. That's taking up.
Interesting.
I listened to Winkleman's explanation of it on that School of Motion podcast. And, he's describing it. Either him or EJ were describing it like there's a master spreadsheet that everybody has of all these verified numbers, and they all have to cross-reference with each other.
Yeah.
So
that tracks.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we're trying to figure out like all of this, and I think some people are getting like negative press for it. It's like, oh, you're doing crypto art. It's bad for the environment. It's like, okay, well, crypto in general is bad for the environment.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's figure out the root problem and if there's a solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I know that Ethereum is a lot better than Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin's like particularly bad. And I think I don't understand the mechanics of technically how this works, but I think Ethereum's trying to move towards a standard that's not this proof of work thing, but it's proof of something else that I'm not going to remember but it uses a lot less energy basically to do the same thing. So it's not there yet though. So yeah, for now it is. I think that does sort of happen where, people are like, oh wait, are you sure you want to do that? I mean, I think I'm one of those people too that's like, wait, is that a good idea?
It may also, so I was reading up somewhere where they were also saying Bitcoin has like this built-in, what is it? So for every like 210,000 blocks that are mined, the price that on return from mining actually gets cut in half. So there's like a built-in inflation for it. So you're having to do twice as much mining in order to get the same amount of cash back. And
I was thinking about that the other day.
Going and going and going,
because today,
eventually
like,
it's going to be
crypto's
so
like through the roof right now.
Yeah.
So, well, for today, but
Thanks, Elon.
Thanks, Elon. The Dogecoin commercial helped all of the crypto.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see the Dogecoin Super Bowl commercial that was all.
I heard there was a Reddit 5-second commercial.
Saw the Reddit one, yeah.
Yeah. This was I don't think this actually aired. I was trying to figure out if this actually aired because it said Super Bowl. I'm sorry, the big game. Shh, you want to get sued? Not the Super Bowl, the Superb Owl.
That's right.
Yes. I don't know if this actually I couldn't figure out if this is a joke or if this is a real thing, but it was this whole thing about Doge going to the moon. I think it was just like a fake Super Bowl commercial, but everybody just kept calling it a Super Bowl commercial. I was like, this didn't air, did it? I didn't see it, but I didn't watch all the Super Bowl, so I don't know. And it's just the whole thing about Doge going to the moon. Yeah. Anyway, the reason I bring it up is because everything because of that seems to be skyrocketing today. You saw Bitcoin at 45,000 peak, I think, earlier today. So I started thinking about the mining. I'm like, well, when it gets that high, what's going to happen as far as mining? Like every time you mine a little bit, you're making like $100. Like it can't possibly go up to the point where you're making that much money off of one graphics card, because then anybody can do it. And it just doesn't make sense as far as the value of the currency. I don't understand.
I was talking to my brother. My brother does a lot of work in China, and he said anytime there's spikes like this, a lot of the Chinese like mining, stuff like just ramps up so that they can make a quick buck and then stop immediately.
Yeah.
So, but did I have noticed when we're mining that the more people who start mining, the price that you get back is actually lower, So for example, the price was $37,000 the other day, and I was getting back $40 to $50 a day. Right now it's up to 45, and I'm still only getting $40 to $50 a day. Because there's more people mining right now. That's
the part that I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
Well, you've got so many people that you have to pay out who helped mine this one coin, or this one.
The value of you mining is reduced when there's 10 other people that are doing it at the same time.
Okay.
So if you're using 10 people to mine one coin, versus one person to mine one coin, your payout. Yeah, you're sharing the money.
See, for me, it's like, if I turn these cards on, will I make more money than what it's drawing in power? The answer is yes. So, as far as mining, it's like, do I need to know all of that stuff? Or can I just, if you wanted to just get into mining, you didn't know what it was, and you set up nice hash, you could do it and figure out the cost and not know any of the background on it.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, should I turn on my cards tonight or not? Is it profitable to do or not?
It's always profitable. I made $188 from Friday to Sunday.
Depends on where
when
you
I
live.
Turned them off this morning. Yeah.
Don't burn your cards out.
Yeah.
Well, I put them on. Well, I had them on high power, and I was up to like it was doing like $60 to $80 a day, And then someone was like, "Yeah, if you're using 30 series, you need to be on low power." So I was like, "All right." Yeah. So I switched everything to low power.
It's
now I'm getting about
the VRAM,
$40
right?
a day.
Like it's baking the VRAM.
So the VRAM is like in the wrong spot or something. So like when you're running them real hard, it can overheat the VRAM. I don't know.
I think it's cool that you're able to choose if your power is renewable or not, though. I mean, that makes it feel a little like, when you think about like the green side of it, it's a little less icky. Where I'm like, okay, I mean, So,
but not everywhere in the world, like in California, they don't let you choose what electricity company you go with. They don't let you choose whether you want to do it through coal or renewable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, when I'm up here and all my machines are all going, the fans are all spun up like crazy, and it's loud and it's hot. Just it does feel icky to me.
It's like I'm not. We don't need to like crack it right now, but I think it's good to be at least aware of. Like as people that for motion graphics people too. One of my first reactions when I looked at Cryptoart, for example, was like, whoa, well, I mean, some of these things that I'm seeing that are selling for $20,000, I'm like, that's kind of like, okay, like a little softbox light setup in Octane, and like you're like, I could do like 30 minutes of work and make that thing.
Yeah.
So it has this. We are uniquely suited to be able to create what is in vogue right now in the world of crypto art, because this is what we do, right? Like you look at the stuff and you're like, oh, wait a minute, cool, I want in, and so I think which is great, and I think it enables a lot of new ways to think about art and new ways for artists to actually get paid, which is great. But let's move forward conscientiously, at least would be my one little my little ruiner rant about crypto art for a little bit.
And on the art stuff too, I think that we're not on the whole energy side anymore, but back to the art part of it, I think that some of these, I feel like Nifty, I really like that they send out an email every day and say this is what the drop's going to be, but I don't like the way they've been advertising it, because just like the other day, for example, they sent out an email. They're very basic white emails with black text and like a picture, and this one comes up.
Yeah, but that's the way their website is. Their website,
no, but you could.
For what they're doing and as much money as they're bringing in, they need a revamp on their website, because their website is junk.
Well, like there's this email that I got, and it says, "Oh, tonight here's this rotating cube," and I looked at it, and I'm like, "It's a cube that rotates 360. It looks like it was made in Octane in like 5 minutes." And I'm like, "Okay, art is,
Art is subjective.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get it, right? Here's my problem with it, is that I sent it to EJ and David jokingly. I said, y'all gonna get in on this cube action tonight? Get you a cube? You know.
And they were excited about it.
Well, here's the thing. Aryev hits me back up with a link on Twitter. He was like, actually, this one looks pretty good. And he sent me the Twitter, and it's all this cool looking stuff. I'm like, why wasn't this in the email? Because what you advertised for this really cool piece of art was a cube. And it wasn't anything what the art looks like.
You got the Winklevi. You got the Winklevi who are, you know.
That's right.
You got to make these emails spicy, though.
Stuff like that,
you
right?
make the emails spicy. You got to get the people excited about what they're going to drop $50,000 on.
I think it's cool to like also to focus on what the art is versus kind of like fetishizing the price that it sold for.
Right.
Because when we hear about an auction at Christie's, like, okay, some painting sold for like $10 million, and you're like, wow, you know, and that's the exact same thing that's happening here, where people way beyond like the sphere of the Mograph world know that Beeple sold a lot of stuff, you know, and because that's a big headline. And I think, you know, seeing what PAC is doing also, where they're, you know, it's a lot of money, and we focus a lot on like how much money that is. So
well, it's the banana tape to the wall thing. It's like these artists are you're in, like Mike said in that School of Motion interview, you're investing in the artist. You're putting your money behind this artist, and he compared it with client work, where the client is paying you to do a thing the way they want it done. You know, they want you to do exactly what they want, whereas when you're getting paid to do Cryptoart, you're getting to do it the way you want it, and people are saying, yes, keep doing what you're doing the way that you're doing it, because I like that. And
I think that's a cool way to think about it, because that's sort of like that, instead of focusing on you buying and owning the JPEG or the MP4 file or whatever, when you think about it as kind of like patronage for an artist, where we're like, I support this person, I like what they're doing, then that rings a little more true to me also, and I like that way of thinking about it.
See, so I'm one of the people who likes to buy it and resell it, you know, flip it. Yeah. But I always, and this is what happens, I like to buy multiple copies, especially on the ones that like, I hate the auction ones, because I know I'm never going to get those, you know, right. There's no way I'm going to be able to auction, you know, or bid $5,000 for something I don't know whether I'm going to be able to flip or not, you know? And like, for me, the collecting part of it, I really like the ones that are the 5-minute grabs, you know, grab as many as you can in 5 minutes, because I can buy multiples of them, sell one of them, make my money back, and then collect another one.
Because there's a bit of strategy in that, because it's up to you to look at those and say, I feel like these are going to do well, because I know the artists, and because I know their work, and I feel like this one is the cooler out of these two. Whatever you're kind of going on a feel on that, and not just trying to high bid on one piece.
Right. Also, well, with Stuzor, you know, when Stuzor did his drop, I bought 3 of them, you know, because I think Stuzor is a really good artist, you know, supporting the artist. I just cashed in some Bitcoin in order to pay for it. No big deal. It hasn't made its money yet. I think once he makes his second drop or something like that, you know, it'll get there.
And the point is,
but
to
in the meantime, I'm just
collecting
them. I'm just collecting them. When what's her name? Blake Catherine makes her drop on the 18th, I believe it is. You know, oh man, you better believe I'm gonna be buying a couple of those, because Blake Catherine, I think, is a mega super talented artist. She's one of my favorites, and I'm mad that I didn't get in on the first drop, because 1, she's super talented, and 2, I know her stuff goes for more, so I can easily flip it. You know.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So, and then, but there's some of these other artists, like, for example, like, what was it? Boss something. It was just recently. They were a Marvel artist, you know, where they were actually auctioning off. They auctioned off it was a Wonder Woman one and a Miles Morales one, and then also did like a Kobe Bryant one, you know, or LeBron James. I get the two confused. I don't remember which one died. Whichever one died.
Kobe died.
Kobe died. Okay,
yes.
yeah. So they did a Kobe one, and did 5 minutes. Boss Logic. Thank you, Kevin.
Boss
Yeah,
Logic,
because Kevin
okay.
picked up one. And like people were able to turn around and flip those really quick,
I
and make
did
a
see
little
that.
bit of money.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
thing
yeah.
is, like, it's like you're taking a risk. It's like this person has 2.5 million followers. Their artwork is really good, but you don't know whether, like, okay, this artwork is crap, but for some reason it sold for $50,000. Here's a really talented artist, but you can't even make your money back on it.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
of it-
That's the confusing thing about some of the crypto art right now.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Having that, a lot of it is sort of like who's good at hyping stuff up on Twitter
Right,
or
right.
Instagram, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and speaking of LeBron James, let's talk about the big game.
The big game.
See, you don't know the difference between LeBron and Kobe, so I just figured I would just say speaking
Oh
of, because
no!
you don't.
You know what?
do you
I
even know
didn't
it's
even. I
basketball?
didn't even notice it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, see, yeah, obviously you're not a golfer, so
I know they're both talented players in their
well,
respective
one of them
fields.
was and one of them is. That's the difference
in sports ball,
in the
In
sports
sports
ball.
ball,
Since
yeah.
since you're so familiar with sports ball, I'm going to assume that you didn't watch the big game. Did you?
I did. I watched part of it, but I mean, we all knew that the Buccaneers were going to win, right?
I have no idea.
I mean,
Ball go far.
I was
Yeah.
there to support Gronk because I really like Gronk.
I don't,
I've been a
what?
big fan of Gronkowski for a long time.
Ah.
Now,
my question is actually about the stuff you were involved in. Is there anything from the Superb Owl that you were involved in that you can talk about?
Me or Matt?
You.
not me. I wasn't.
Oh, yeah. So our company actually had, I think, 4 spots in the Super Bowl. So it's Goodby Silverstein and Partners as the advertising agency, and there was the Matthew McConaughey spot for Doritos 3D, which was actually kind of like a big VFX thing where he's flat the whole time.
Saw that one. Yeah, that was good.
yeah. There was Cheetos had Shaggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kunis. Yeah.
Found out that it was in fact him, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And then also a spot for Sam Adams and Rockstar. And this year, I didn't get to work on any of them specifically. A lot of times there'll be like a shot that we get to do something on, or sometimes we've done a whole end tag for like a Comcast spot. But yeah, it's still cool to get to see work that your buddies made and got on the Super Bowl.
What's a majority of the work that you currently do for your company? Like,
So-
because if you started out in Mograph, After
Mhm.
Effects, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and then you moved into this very unique
Mhm.
field, it's like, and I'm also curious if your company, like, if they saw your interest in it and they were like, okay, we're gonna move you into something different, if they like were really into that, or if they kind of held back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Those are good
Like,
questions.
Is it do they just see it as, oh, this is just a hobby, or, oh no, we can utilize this?
Yeah.
No, I think they've been very sort of forward thinking for a long time. Going back to a project we did for the Dali Museum before the deepfake one, we did a VR one that was in
Mhm.
around 2016, very early days of the Oculus wasn't even out yet, so it was like
Right.
the developer kit version of the Oculus. We did something in Unity, and so they've always given me. I'm fortunate because they've given me kind of enough like of a leash to kind of play around with new tech stuff that I'm excited about.
Mhm.
So I was doing projects like that while still sort of being in the motion graphics group. And then just recently, they asked if I would be the director of our internal creative technology group called GS&P Labs. So yeah, that was sort of like, it's a strange step for me because I come at it from, a Mograph VFX 3D animation perspective, but I also, I understand writing code and, to some extent.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm doing that now, and that was them sort of seeing my interest in that, and then thinking that this sort of stuff is aligned with what clients want to be doing too. So what we do is think about ways that we can use creative technology and new tech to tell stories for clients. Or
Mhm.
so yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing.
As far as the future, like for example, a lot of us as mographers are having to dip our toes into these different fields and stuff.
Yeah.
Like game engines.
Do you think, game engines, deep fakes, how advantageous will it be for us to know this stuff in the future? Is there going to be a point in which we're like, okay, we don't need to know that? Or do you think we should?
I think that if anybody was asking for my advice, I would recommend that they try to be dipping their toe in, and getting if not like a production level understanding of something, at least an understanding of the vocabulary, and try some of the software out when you can, because there are tools that are going to be more and more accessible that allow us to make better stuff faster. And so I don't know that it's like, a great C4D artist is going to get left behind by AI in our lifetimes,
Right.
But that said, there are like, the roto thing you were talking about. I'm not sure how good of a job that machine learning tool does at doing it, but maybe it's good enough for some shots.
Yeah, we'll try.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, you should.
Right.
So I think that, for me, all of this stuff is, I always love, and I think this is a thing pretty common in the Mograph community, is that people are always interested in learning and trying new things and exploring. And so that's definitely true for me. And the things that I've been exploring in the world of AI and machine learning have opened other doors for me already. And, possibilities of things when you're in like a brief with an art director and a creative director, and they're like, could we do something like this? And you normally be like, well, it's going to be really expensive, or no. Or you could be like, actually, maybe we can do that. Let's try something. Yeah. So I think it's a lot to kind of take in, but it's well worth it.
How do you worry about having moved on to this new job position? Do you worry about being underutilized now?
No, I don't think so.
You're like,
well,
I don't know.
Because the thing happens, it's like with so many people like that are 3D people, and they go into a job, and then someone's like, "Oh, After Effects? You're pretty good at this. You should just do all this 2D After Effects stuff all the time from now on." And you don't want to be like only AI guy. Like, what else are you?
Well, I'm just
expanding on.
Also, like, how many jobs are there available? How many pitches is the company going to make specifically, knowing that they can use some of these types of things, Or I don't know. I would assume if people have seen previous work, they know what you're capable of. I don't know.
It's the whole, if you have a hammer, then everything looks like a nail situation.
Right.
Like, are you in the position where it's like always like, oh, can we solve this with AI? Can we AI this?
I have to be careful about that. And I think that is something that, I tend to want to do. But it's the challenge for me is thinking about different kinds of problems, right? Where it's stuff that if we were going to bid out a project that's, some animation and VFX, and it's this many seconds, like I could probably figure that out with you guys pretty quick, and we'd have a good idea of what we're doing. So, my challenge is thinking about, just working with creative technologists and coders now instead of animators is a challenge. And I think what we're actually trying to do beyond just AI stuff is looking into virtual production a little bit using Unreal. So I'm excited to hear you guys talking about Unreal also. And one of our creative technologists right now is just like, he's just starting to get stuff set up where he's got like vibe tracking going and his TV behind it, and the screen is reacting to a virtual camera. And in that situation, we're able to do some stuff that falls into the game engine category that gets a little outside of traditional Mograph things. But the agency understands really well that, like, well, wait, if we can set this up with an actual screen in our in-house little studio and wheel that thing in when we want to do a shoot, and we could get, like a medium shot where we don't have to go to a location. That's something they understand. And I think they see that as a way that they can actually make some money too from a client instead of doing a traditional shoot. So it's, I think, looking for those sort of opportunities will be something that I'm trying to do. I mean, I don't know. I'm just figuring all this out too. So.
It's good to know the terminology and at least dip your toe in, or just be aware of these different things. You don't have to know them all. I mean, we all want to know everything about everything, right? It's like,
Right.
teach me everything about crypto, everything about Cryptoart, everything about Unreal. And we just can't. Nobody can do that. So you got to choose a handful of things that you're going to concentrate on, or else you'll be a master of none. And so it's like, I've mentioned this before, but I used to listen to a networking podcast, right, about security and networks and IPs and packets and all of this crazy stuff. And I knew about 10% of what they were talking about. But I was just very interested in knowing it and at least being aware of the terminology. And it's just through osmosis, it has helped me, because it's like, oh, we've got to set up this network and it's not working because of something called NAT. What is that? I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I heard about that on my show. And I feel like in this industry, if you're at least aware of what's going on, like Matt says, he doesn't watch every tutorial, but he takes this mental note, like, okay, this person did that one thing on that thing, so when I need that, I'm going to go find it. Just this awareness, even. Yeah,
knowing enough to be able to sort of Google your way back to something, I think, is a really good skill to have. And that's what you're describing is similar to how things started off and working with GANs for me too, right? That I went to a conference at MIT where I was like woefully in over my head in terms of the stuff these people were talking about. But I printed out some white papers on the airplane and I read them and I was like, okay.
I know some of those words.
Yeah, exactly. But then it builds, and over time you get to the point where you're like, wait, I think I can actually talk about this. And I remember talking with someone that I met at that conference that worked doing AI at Lyft. And I remember saying, like, I mean, I'm not like an expert in this. I mean, the real people would say this, and she's like, yeah, the funny thing is that like you become the expert pretty quickly by just doing it,
Right.
Yeah. You'll start, people will start to think of you as the expert. And I mean, you introduced me that way and I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Let's see what, but it does sort of like enough time, and excitement and interest in learning what you can make with something, I think opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. I think your Instagram is probably testament that you at least know what you're doing a little bit.
Thanks.
Yeah. How much coding is involved?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a good coder. My mind doesn't work that way. I do like.
I still have all your code books, by the way, from college.
Right, I know.
That I also didn't read.
Like, I do love the technology, and I love dipping into that, but I don't like code.
Yeah, I think so. Most of it doesn't have to be actually writing code from scratch. I'm almost never doing that. Usually you kind of do need to be able to read it enough to know, like, okay, cool, this variable is something that's coming in from the command line, and where does that go in here? Okay, cool, that's at the top. Okay. So if I want to change that, I need to be up here. So enough of kind of being able to read things. But a lot of the kind of the mechanics of it aren't so much editing the Python code as they are using Linux, for example, or like being in a terminal on like a cloud compute cluster, that where you just sort of get quick at that eventually, but it's all sort of command line stuff and knowing how to like edit a text file in the terminal window instead of opening it in TextEdit,
Is there a place that you could recommend? Like, what would be, if someone wanted to get into it, say me, for example, I wanted to like start to learn about like GAMs, or even deep fakes. Where would you recommend for the layman to go?
Yeah. That's a great question. And the one of the best places to start would be the classes that Derek Schultz has on the Bustbright YouTube channel. I think is what it's called. If you search for like one word Bustbright, I'm going to check that too. He's got some playlists. Yeah, machine learning art.
Artificial images, is that it?
Yeah, artificial images. Okay. That's it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Dave, or you want me to send it to you?
No, I got it.
We'll put that in the chat. The notes.
He has some, like, check out the playlists part of that, because he kind of explains it from the perspective of, like, he knows how to, he's a designer, I think, by default, and he's now creating machine learning art. But he approaches it from the perspective of like somebody that uses Photoshop and knows how to do some things in After Effects.
Cool.
But we're going to talk about code today and what do these variables mean. So he kind of shows you some different ways into it, and that's he'll do classes. I think his latest class filled up pretty quick, but I have a lot of respect for him and how he shares all of his knowledge, and I've kind of come up alongside of him, I think, where I was sort of on my own track of Googling my way through it, but then I see these classes and I was like, oh, damn it, I wish I knew about that class when I was starting out.
Okay.
So yeah, that'd be a good place to check out. And then
what about for deepfakes?
The deepfake stuff, the main software everybody uses is called Deep Face Lab. And that's on GitHub. And I feel like a lot of it's a lot of like Discord channels and stuff of people talking about it. I'm not sure. I think there's probably some good YouTube tutorials as well. I haven't actually dipped into this in a while, but watching for, tutorials for Deep Face Lab, I think would be one way to get started on that. But that's kind of like, I think that's kind of the standard of what people are playing with.
Beautiful.
You look at this. You know what I do half the time when this page comes up? Close.
That's
right.
Where don't close.
I want to learn how to do this. Oh, I gotta GitHub close. Never mind.
They actually they have like a Windows executable that you can just download. I'm pretty sure, so you don't have to run the Python scripts and stuff. Yeah, it's good. But that one, that's worth looking at if you want to get into some deepfake stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's just going to explode the easier it gets to do this. You see what's happening right now with the deepfakes app that everyone's using, the face, whatever it's called. Everybody's doing it. So the easier this gets, it's just going to get more and more streamlined.
Yeah.
The process will be down to where anyone can do it. So like now is the time to get into it, right?
I think that's very true. Yeah.
Before everybody can do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you get into it now, or do you just wait until Adobe builds it into After Effects?
If you want to be the first, do you want to be the first? Do you want to have something unique, or do you wait and be the artist that finds a way to use this as more of a prosumer level? Because there's value in both. I mean, if you're not a code person, if you're an artist, you're the creative person thinking of the creative way to do something with it. If you're a technical person, you might be able to get in early. And if you're a technical person with artistic background, double score, right?
Wonder if anyone's built a plugin specifically for After Effects, that would
heard of it.
Use it in the background. I don't know.
As long as
I mean that sort of stuff would be interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good insight, Dave, about it's not for everybody to be like, cool, I'm diving into GitHub and like compiling this code, and there's always stuff to learn, and I think being aware of this stuff even is meaningful to some extent, to know which questions to ask or who you might talk to try something out.
So. I think and that's one thing that you've touched on, which I think is it can be is good advice all across our field, where for example you said the terminology, what to say, like when we're working with a client who understands what we're going through, it's like those are my favorite clients to work with, because I can talk to them. I don't have to dumb down my speech,
right?
And so, like,
I've got to re-render it because it didn't have enough samples. It was too grainy, and they're like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
right.
Like they understand that, and that's one thing you were talking about, like understanding the terminology and the language, so that you can speak to some of the non After Effects motion design people, the hardcore coders, to kind of understand, to be able to speak to each other.
Yeah, and I find that being finding myself in between those two worlds, there's not like a ton of people that do both, so I think for people that do find the more technical side interesting, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of opportunities for work there, a lot of opportunities to make some really cool things. So nerd out if you feel like it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I wanted to get to some links, and actually now we're at the point where I think I've talked about every link in another segment. So we only have one link left that I haven't talked about today. That's I just wanted to put out there. Travis Ragsdale has a new 2020 reel that's pretty dope that you should check out. And that's it. That's it for links.
All right.
All right. Whew, man. Mission accomplished. All right. So we're going to go to Mograph Recommends, and we're going to ask you some of your favorites of things, and these can be either right now, your current favorite, or your all-time favorite. Doesn't matter. And we're going to start out by talking about your favorite movie.
Well, this is for me.
That's for you, yeah.
Oh, wow, great. Okay, I heard you made a Lebowski reference earlier, so that's one of my go-to picks. Although we were allowed to watch Star Wars, or we could rent a movie once a week from the video store when we were kids, and I got Star Wars every single week. So Star Wars was my first love.
That's funny.
You get that box, and then you get the single cellophane packet of popcorn that you can put in the microwave. Yeah.
That's right.
Dave and I, when we were up in Iceland, they've got a Big Lebowski bar.
Yeah,
you know, where you can get like American burgers and stuff like that. It's the only time the whole time we were there that my kid actually ate food.
It was a $40 burger, but it was a
$40 burger. Yes.
Wow.
But...
That's cool.
So Big Lebowski, and then what about music?
I have such a eclectic mix of everything. I've really been into a guy named Fortet recently. He does electronic music. I think he's from London, but yeah, kind of all of his work has been something I've been excited about recently. It's good. It's good music to work to.
I was going to ask, is it like something you listen to every day, or do you work to it? Is it both?
It's more work music than just like, driving around music, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very like, what is his latest? I'm gonna look right now. What his latest album is? I played it every.
Fortet. Okay, so it's FOUR.
Parallel is his latest album.
Okay.
Yeah. So Parallel is the latest album, and I played that every day through once last week, each day of the week. So yeah,
man, I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah, he's cool.
And I've got a playlist called Bands to Explore. I just added it. Yeah.
Jeff Webb says Fortet and Madlib. Do you know Madlib?
Yes. Yeah, Madlib.
Okay, I'm going to have to check these
They
out.
have there's a new Madlib album that Fortet worked on, I think.
What are you watching as far as TV shows right now?
We have gone back to Battlestar Galactica, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Rewatching that with my wife. And we're about like 2/3 of the way through. I've never actually finished the whole thing. So
really? Do you know how it ends?
No, don't tell me anything.
I don't know either. I've only watched the first episode.
I'm not looking at the chat. We can't talk anything more about it. But it's I love that show. And I was just also I tried to watch, I think it's called Get to the Lake. So it's some sort of, it was really well reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes. It's this Russian show that was basically like a pandemic story, except it's gonna kill you, and just society devolves into violence, and it was really stressful. So I didn't finish that one.
Too close to real life.
Yeah, it was pretty well done though. Get to the lake.
To the lake.
To the lake. Maybe that's what it is. Very intense.
But
interesting.
WandaVision is pretty good. It's pretty good. I think Julie and I agree it's better than Mandalorian so far.
Really? No, I like I they're on equal playing.
It's
like Battlestar Galactica though. I got to go back and watch that.
Oh, Kevin!
It's funny because
it's
the
been
effects
years
have not aged
since
well. Like
yeah.
It's like the robot comps. You're like, ooh, okay, but the story's just so good. So I'm really liking that.
Kevin in the chat says Battlestar Galactica is good, but Breaking Bad is also the best show he's seen, except for maybe The Wire. Okay, good. No, I'll check those shows out. Never heard of them. All right.
Oh.
No, WandaVision is great. It's a mix of it's a mix of action, comedy, and weirdness all in one.
Yeah.
It can get trippy, it can get funny, it can get serious. I don't know. Really enjoying it.
I really enjoy. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like it a lot.
The only thing I have to say is I feel like they could have done more with the retro stuff. There's a lot more jokes and things they could have made.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And
like this past week was the
80s sitcom.
Family Ties.
Family Ties.
It was Family Ties. I have a feeling this next week is probably going to be Full House. You know?
You think,
I bet you anything
are they not
it's
going
Full
to the
House.
90s?
Well, that is the
Or I guess
90s,
that
isn't it?
That's kind of both.
Yeah.
But the Family Ties thing, here's the problem I had with it. The lighting was not on point. It was just regular lighting. It was not 80s sitcom lighting. It wasn't bright enough.
Okay.
It should have been more of this bright, like...
I thought it was
I don't
fine.
know. And I feel like they... Like in the other ones, they did them in like black and white, 4x3.
Mm-hmm.
They should have done this 4x3, give it a little bit of VHS. They didn't do that. They just went with like regular cameras as opposed to the other 2 episodes or 3 episodes.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I
fine.
don't know. I just wish they pushed that a little bit more. It felt like it could have been good.
Did you see? I think my wife had told me that she read somewhere that Disney Plus actually crashed in a few places because enough people started watching Age of Ultron directly after the WandaVision episode. Because it like,
it comes
you know,
on
there's so
as
many
a suggestion right
exactly.
after.
There's so many references to Age of Ultron in, you know, the show that it's like they recommend that at the end, and enough people started. I mean, we did too. We watched it Friday night. You know, that was our thing. We watched Age of Ultron right after WandaVision. I don't know. It's good.
What about podcasts? Do you listen to them, A? And B, if you do, what do you listen to?
I do listen to them. I've stopped listening as much now that I don't have a commute to work on BART every day across the bay. But my favorite podcast of all time is called The Anthropocene Reviewed. It's by an author named John Green, who wrote The Fault in Our Stars and Turtles all the way down. But it's essentially his thing is reviewing things on a 5-star scale on the human-centered planet. But highly recommend that one. It's really well written. It's funny, but it's also, I mean, there's some episodes there's one in particular that makes me cry. It's just got a huge range. He's a really good writer. But most of the time I'm much more like, I listen to the Daily and just like get the news in there and that kind of stuff.
My wife just finished reading Turtles All the Way Down, and like she hated it. She just hated it. Like she couldn't stop talking about how much she didn't like the book.
I actually haven't read that one. I did read The Fault in Our Stars, but yeah, he's pretty funny. I like his podcast.
It's called the
Anthropocene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Borat would say. Anthropocene.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
The thing about podcasts, like you said, it's the commute thing. I've really just have not been able to catch up on a lot of things. A little bit more lately. I'll have my one show, like the one show that I really want to catch up on, which I'm even behind on that goes on when I'm in the car. You know, lately I've added them to my run. Now that I am running faster than most of my favorite music, I don't have to rely on the beat anymore. So I have, on these 4-hour runs, been listening to more podcasts, but I still can't keep up.
Good, Dave. I'm proud of you. You normally hate podcasts while you're running.
Yeah, I didn't like it at first.
I can't do any words when I'm running. I like to. It's a very meditative time for me, so I can do like some slam and trance music, or I can just do nothing. You know, it's
right.
That's kind of that's my vibe when I'm running.
I think for me, the hard runs, the regular, shorter hard runs, I still have to have music. But when you get into like my marathon is Saturday, by the way, so it's been good knowing you. And when you do that, you're not running that hard. Honestly, you're conserving energy for all that time. But like 6 hours, even with music, because you're jamming to music, but your brain is just like, oh my god, I'm bored. I have been in my own head for 5 hours staring at the sidewalk.
Right.
That's when I welcome it, because I just. Somebody tell me something, say something, give me something to get so I can get out of my own head. And
I've never run that far that long before, so kudos.
Me neither.
It sucks. I don't know why I'm doing it actually, but so I've been able to listen to some more recently and catch up, but it does suck because I had some favorite podcasts and I don't know what's going on in the world of John Roderick for the last 2 or 3 years now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I need to catch up, but I don't know. Next on the list, favorite plugin, minus render engines, though. That's cheating.
Yeah, I'm curious if you've
Favorite
got
plugin.
something different.
We had a contest at work to see who could use CC ball action actually and get it on the air. I did get CC ball action broadcast one time on an in tag for HP. I was proud of that. But in terms of, my like go-to plugin that I use, it's pretty straightforward. But I love Colorista for just messing with color. I follow kind of anything that Stu Maschwitz talks about.
Yeah.
And have been kind of like since the early days of his blog called Prolost. And I think he had a lot to do with the design of how Colorista works based on looking how, back before there was Resolve and stuff where you kind of easily do color correction like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Colorista.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a good plugin.
Mm-hmm.
Next on the list is your go-to muscle memory app on your phone.
Oh, it's Instagram these days, which I'm not sure how I feel about. I've gotten people are real excited about these face recreations, and so I've gotten a bunch more followers. And so I've been trying to balance that where I'm like, okay, I'm like spending too much time looking at this. But that's probably that one.
Yeah, Instagram stories and all the notifications for everything, and that can be such a distraction too. I turn it all off. I have to.
Yeah, I've actually just turned them back off. I had them on for a while because I would get a message from something and felt like I need to write right back, but I'm trying to like take a step back and give myself time to focus.
Yeah, because you get like so and so sent you a message on Instagram and you go and they just like hearted something that you said. Like,
right.
See, I'm okay with that. Like I had someone send me a message like a week or two ago, and I didn't see it for like 3 days. And it was about a job, and I was like, oh, I missed out on that job because of it. So I turned my notifications on, but only to the point in which like I would get likes or I would get messages or something. But now it's like so-and-so who's a friend of so-and-so just posted a new story. Come see it before it ends. And it's like, there's no way to turn that off.
Yeah,
that's why I turned them off.
It's annoying.
So-and-so who you follow liked something that one of their followers posted. And it's like, I do not care about that.
Yeah.
They're just trying to suck you back in. That's all it is.
Yep.
We all know it. Next on the list now, this is a new one that we've only had a few weeks, but what's your favorite video game?
Yeah.
Ooh. That's a great question. I have not actually played games in so long. I have such great memories of like, in fact, if I had to say one, it would be Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo because that's that's my favorite that I probably logged the most hours on. And I had this great time gaming all the way through high school, and then I went to college and I got busy somehow. And I got away from it. And I remember after I graduated, I had my first job, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy whatever the like latest system is, and I got a GameCube, and I was just like, I got stuff to do. I haven't been able to get back into it like I could before, but now I'm excited because my kid's starting to get to the age where I could probably like show him some games. Yeah. And so I ordered one of the like NESs that they re-released.
Yes.
And a Super Nintendo. So we're going to start with like Mario.
Honestly, your kid will probably like Street Fighter 2 on that. My kid loved it. Like when he was like 4 or 5 years old, absolutely loved playing Street Fighter 2. He'd ask me all the time, "Can we play Street Fighter? Can we play Street Fighter?" And what you do, here's the thing. Like you turn your handicap like all the way down and his all the way up or vice versa or whatever, to where he only has to hit you twice before you die, and you'll get a lot better because you actually have to work for it.
Right.
And he doesn't.
Right. That's good. Yeah. You can really trounce him when you put it back to normal. Yeah. So that's something I'm like thinking through. I'm like, okay, how do you introduce video games to him? Like, I want him to start off with, 8-bit simple. So I'm gonna dip my toe back into that here pretty soon. I think that'll be fun.
Nice. Now, the last one, this is the tough one, but what about life hack? It's tough. Mitch Myers, it's our example that we always give. He turns the toaster on its side for some bomb-ass grilled cheese.
Ooh.
Do you have any either profound or not profound life hacks?
Gosh, I was going to be like, go for a run. It'll give you a lot of energy and you'll sleep better.
A lot of people say that too. Meditation is a big life hack that we get.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that my wife suggests that I should do a lot, and I really never actually put much effort into trying. So maybe if you guys are saying it too, that's the world talking to me.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like I should get into it, see if it helps.
Yeah, maybe. But I guess that's what running is actually kind of my meditation,
Yeah.
you know, in particular, like when I do a long run on Sunday morning, where you kind of get to the flow state of not really paying attention to what you're doing and just kind of going. Gosh, I should have thought ahead a little bit on this one in terms of a more creative life hack than go get some exercise, everybody.
So Sunday's your long run day too. That's my long run day. Well,
Sunday
how about
morning.
in the world of running? Do you have a hack or advice for people in the world of running?
I do have a new thing I've started using that a runner friend turned me on to called City Strides. Okay. And basically it tracks in whatever city you're in what percentage of the streets you've run. So you kind of see this progress and you get to see it on a map, like of these are all the places that you've run. And it kind of turns it into a game, and it really encourages you to try some places you wouldn't normally run, where I kind of would have my set of like 6 things that I always do. And I'm like, okay, if I want to be in the woods, I go here. And if it's blah, blah, blah. But I've actually seen some new parts of where I live just because I'm motivated to like try to increase my completion percentage a little bit. So it's called City Strides. City Strides, it hooks into Strava. And a couple other apps, and it just like downloads your data there and completes your map. And so it's a small project. I donate $5 a month to the developer because I think it's just like one person that made this thing, and it's kind of starting to get a little traction. So that's a good one. If you run, check that out.
That's super cool. Gamifying running.
Yeah. That's my video game. There you go.
That's what I think.
And you have to really run.
Strava and all of these like Couch to 5K and what do you call them? The C25K apps for all of that. It is gamifying it for sure.
Yeah.
It helps you at least feel like you're trying to be accountable for it because your friends are on there too and you're giving each other kudos and whatnot. So it's like, you know. And it's also a little discouraging to see how fast some of the other people are running. But
right, yeah. Don't look too close.
Oh, you ran 30 miles, 7 minutes a mile. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to stick with my like 13 minutes a mile now. So
you do you.
Yeah.
20-minute mile, baby. Right here.
So that's it for Mograph Recommends and for the show for that matter.
Nathan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, you bet.
It's very eye-opening, and it is a pleasure to meet you. I'm very, very excited you came on. You know.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, you guys. It's rad to be here, and I love talking about all this stuff. So if any other questions come up, hit me up. Let me know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that there's just so much to unpack with this AI stuff. So people want to check you out. It's NathanShipley.com. What about on all the social stuff?
I post most of my images on Instagram, and I'm Nathan Shipley VFX. It's got underscores, so Nathan_Shipley_VFX. And then on Twitter, I am Citizen Plane. And Twitter is where I post more experimental AI stuff, where I'm on Instagram, I kind of explain it in a more general way where I'm like using AI to recreate a painting. And then on Twitter, the latest thing I was showing is a new AI model called Clip that this group called OpenAI released, where it can match text with images. So they've trained it on basically the whole internet to understand what image would go with particular text. And so somebody hooked that up to another generative network, a GAN, and you can type something in and then have the GANs make an image based on that.
Wow.
So I've got some where, you know, I had one, I was like a cloud made out of different things, like a cloud made out of eyeballs or water or love.
Cool.
Like abstract concepts even work, and you can use this thing to like
Man.
sort images, create data sets. So that stuff that's more of the like the 100-sided die stuff is more on Twitter, and then the Instagram is for the pretty pictures. So
Man, I can imagine like, you know, once they get all that
Jeez.
down and it's streamlined and you could even like integrate it into Amazon Echo. So you could just ask for things.
Of a cloud made of dogs in a blue sky. That's so cool.
yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
I want to
Yeah.
say I'm all alone on a dark highway and there's this snake wearing a vest.
oh, we should do that
You know,
one.
like
I'm gonna write it
like
down.
the Pee-wee. It's the Pee-wee thing. It's his dream
Oh,
he
yeah.
describes. When she's like, "What are your dreams?" He's like, "There's a snake wearing a vest." You should do Pee-wee's dream.
Okay, I'm on
Pee-wee's
it.
dream. That's the name of it too. Pee-wee's dream.
Perfect. That is my one note that I've written.
man.
It says Pee
You
Wee's
got
Dream.
to tag us if you do that one. I want to see
Okay,
that.
you got it.
Cool.
All that glitters is gold.
The other thing, so what this is, this is related to another release. If people want to check this out on OpenAI, there's another thing they have called DALL-E, DALL-E. So like Wally, but Dolly. And it's sort of the souped up version of this where they have samples on their site where you'll type like a baby daikon radish walking a dog or something, and then it has an illustration that looks just like that, and then 20 variations of it, where it's doing generating images from text. So that's very kind of like bleeding edge, and they haven't even actually released that one to the world, but people are all excited to play about it. So for now, we've got Clip and different GANs. So
It's super cool.
that's on Twitter.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a whole other ball of wax.
Well, yeah, and everybody definitely check out NathanShipley.com because like I like that there's more in like the background on some of these things on your website,
Yeah.
more than just
Yeah.
viewing the images on Instagram.
A lot of AI stuff on there with a few sentences about them. So cool. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. You can check us out on all the things like iTunes. You can leave a review on iTunes. That really helps get our ratings up, especially if you subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. Subscribe to the newsletter. Finally went out this week. Hopefully everybody got it and is checking out all the new fun things that are coming up pretty soon. Make sure you join us on Thursday this week and on Thursday next week as well. Lots of specials. You could say that you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt if you bought one of the t-shirts on our website. The Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 shirt, vintage. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. And the Render Things t-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve tee, that is our best seller. Make sure you get that. It's going to be cold in the next couple weeks in all of the U.S., so make sure you get yourself that Render Things hoodie. Stay nice.
I feel like
and
I've been
warm.
hearing that for weeks, and it's still hot here.
It's because there's this slow-moving pocket of air that they can't calculate that's moving down.
Gotcha.
The German model has the panhandle of Texas hitting -24 next week. So
Yeah, no
we'll see.
way.
But that's the
Not gonna
German
happen.
model, and you know how Germans are, right?
No,
Jokes.
how are they?
I got jokes.
They're very serious.
Yes.
And
It's very serious. It's very calculated. It's going to be -24.
very calculated and serious.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere, but there's all these different models, and so apparently it's going to get super, 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 super cold here, which is like possibly records for Dallas. And so, if that happens on the same day as my run, I'm going to be.
You'll feel great.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? What shirts did I not go over yet? That render is fire shirt, which you're only allowed to wear ironically.
Unless you're
shams.
shams. Yeah.
And the Mograph graphic blandishment shirt. Get that as well.
Yep.
That's it. Those are all the shirts. Does anybody buy the shirts? I don't even know. I don't even keep
We had a
track.
few people buy shirts,
Yeah.
actually. I was just looking at our bank account.
No,
You know,
I don't pay attention.
we sold like 3 shirts.
because we don't.
My brother-in-law bought a shirt.
we
the
don't
other
really
day.
make any money off of those. So It's
No.
just kind of like here's some shirts. So I never really
Yeah.
pay attention to because most of them are at cost. So
Yeah.
check them out. It's just fun things that we put out there just so we can look cool and have inside jokes on our shirts when we show up for
Yeah.
like meetups and things. So
Yep.
hopefully we'll be doing that again soon. In the meantime, check us out on all the social stuff: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Mograph.com. And that about wraps it up. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Nathan Shipley.
Thanks, Nathan.
You bet.
Appreciate it. And we're going to get out
fellas.
of here. Until next time, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Nathan.
Have a good one.
Later, yo. Stop. Was that episode 271?
That
What's
is
the music? Oh, you got the music playing. You just can't hear it, so that because that's
Yeah, okay. Nice.
Operation completed, but with the following warning: XMP metadata could not be given to the file. That's
Looks like my thing kept recording the whole time.
good.